Hello, everybody, and welcome to the legislative breakfast at the Eastside here at April 24th. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. As you can clearly see, I am not Bill. Bill had asked for the day off today. He had some personal issues, so I'm here taking his place for today. A script? A script? What's a script? I don't know. But we'd like to thank NEK-TV. They're now casting on Facebook, which is going to be pretty amazing. Like to also thank the Eastside for the amazing food. I do not have a sponsor to thank today. We've had sponsors. So unfortunately for you, that means you got to get out some money and throw it in the basket. We ask $5 a person today for their food to help compensate them. Our scheduled presenters are Senator Russ Ingalls and Representative Brian Smith and Woody Page, Representative Woody Page. And we're going to try to stick to the format a little bit more. Each representative and senator will be given 10 minutes to speak. And then afterwards, during the question and answer period, you will still have to come up here, but we are trying to reduce the amount of extraneous speaking when it comes to the questions. It's a question period, so please just come up and ask your question, okay? And I just want to give everyone a heads up, because I'm the moderator. Okay. So, again, I'd like to thank you all, and we'll begin with Senator Russ Ingalls. Thank you all.
Unfortunately, 10 minutes gives me about time to get my first name out, so that's good. But we're wrapping the session up. The budget got voted out on Friday. It's $8.6 billion budget. It's the largest that the state's ever had. We're spending down through all the COVID monies that we've had. There's a burn rate on that. It looks like 2027. That will be through all of that, and then we're already starting to see reality. Out of this $8.6 billion budget, there was nearly $500 million that extra asks that obviously weren't included because there's no money. There's already some bills out there that will probably get towards getting passed towards law that even though we've spent $10 billion during this COVID relief times, the supermajority feels that there should be tax increases. So you're going to see some tax increases on some items that we just really don't believe that should be going on, but that's a reality of. It's not all bad as far as where the budget is. We've had some hits or misses. We have a housing bill out there. Unfortunately, it's going to spend $1 billion, and we don't expect it's probably going to build any more houses than what's being built right now, just because we had some tweaks in there that would allow more houses being built in communities that had capacity for them and wanted them, but the builders and financiers of these projects just do not want to have the delays of Act 250. It adds twice the cost of projects, and so like South Burlington, for instance, says we have all these beautiful developments that have 9 houses in them. They could easily had 25 houses in them. The reason why they have 9 houses in them is because the 10th house within 10 miles would have kicked in Act 250, and the developers just want to get their projects in and get paid back for what they've done, even though these developments could simply easily have put in nearly over double those houses and still not kicked in Act 250, and it would have been a win-win for everybody. But there's a housing bill out there. They're working on some paid family leave. It's unclear whether the governor will sign that or not. Again, just above and beyond what the governor had proposed by about 3 times. So we're gonna work through some of that. I think just the order of the day is that Montpelier is a little tone deaf of really what the state can afford and really what you've asked them for. we're gonna struggle here for a little bit. All the economists are saying that there's a downturn coming, and that we need to tighten our belts up, but we haven't seen that down there yet. But we have a $204 million capital bill that's gonna be out on Tuesday. I'm in charge of that as far as chair of institutions. We had a bit of our monies taken from the House, but we've clawed it back, and a lot of that monies that we clawed back are for projects that are going to help clean water. We have a lot of communities who are working towards either fixing or expanding or putting in new sewer systems to keep the waters from flowing into the 4 basins of water that we have in the state, and that's a good thing. So we're working a lot on that. It's a battle down there right now. It really, really is. It's a battle down there to balance to what the Vermonters really want versus what they're told that they want. And I, for one, will be happy in a couple weeks when we adjourn and catch our breaths a little bit and just kind of live with what we have going on down there. But I really want to say a couple things about our communities and the areas that we represent. First of all, I feel strongly that you're very well represented. The people in the kingdom, the representatives, and the other senator, my seatmate, we fight hard for what's important to our rural communities. I really just want to believe, and I know because I'm down there every day, that had we not had such great representation, we would have been left further behind. And I'm happy to go to battle with these guys every day, and happy with the results that we produced. We got the best at what we could get in the times that we're in. I also want to comment on the amount of feedback that we get from the community. It's so important. I wish other parts of the state would understand that, that without hearing your voice, sometimes representatives and senators are making decisions based on just a few people that they're hearing from, because and they, that's what they're hearing, and so that's how they're persuaded to vote. When really it's probably not the voice that needs to be heard. So our community does a great job of reaching out and telling people, telling us how they feel and what's important to them, and I will commend you on that. We've had a few bills, the S5 bill in particular. You've told us that you can't afford higher heating costs and the expensive upgrades that are going to be required to be there, and you guys have made it loud and clear that that's probably not what you want in the kingdom or around the state. And it's funny because we really think that we're in a supermajority around the state. And probably Republicans will never be in full control in the State House for quite a time. But I was on a radio show in Colchester the other day. Usually it's a half-hour show, and they ask all the same questions of what I'm talking about, and we broke the phone line. So we had so many phone calls coming in, and people were saying things like, "Are you artificial intelligence? Because we just don't have politicians talking like what you talk about." And and that show's usually half hour. They asked me to stay on for an extra hour, and we had a lot of great people calling in and feeling relieved that there are people in Montpelier, like our delegation of folks that you send down there, that know how to talk normal, I would say, normal to what is normal for us. So I will just say this one last thing and give the floor up. We don't have a problem of too many people that don't think like us in this state. We have a problem that we don't let our voices be heard at the polls, at the voting stations. For whatever reason, we just don't vote in the numbers that the other side votes in. And we need to do that. We need to make sure that, well, if you don't like mail-in ballots, then make sure that you get to the polling station to vote while the polling station is there. Our voting numbers are horrendous compared to other parts of the state, and we don't have enough people not to have every vote counted and every voice heard. So I would, moving forward, on May 27th, I'm going to speak to the young Republicans in Barrie. And my message to them is, I'm going to ask them a question, and I'm going to ask them, how do you think that you can impact change the best way? And I know they're going to have 15 things that they're going to talk about or want to talk about, and I'm going to let them get through about half of them. I'm going to say that's great, but if you really want to impact change, your 18 to 40-year-olds vote about 10% of what the population is. You have a lot to say, you're very active, but you just don't vote. So if you want to impact change and you want to make a difference and you want to make sure that Vermonters' voices are heard, please go around, and when you go and vote, bring 5 people with you and have those people bring 5 people with you and have those people bring 5 people with you, and let's just make sure that we have a true representation, at least a balance in the state or in Montpelier for what we really want to see Vermont looking like for the next 30 years. But I thank you. I thank everybody for coming very much, and thank you for your support. And we're almost winding down in Montpelier, and I'm winding down now. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ingalls. And now Representative Woody Page. Oh, did I break up am I supposed to do Brian's first? See, this is what happens when you don't have a script, just so you know. Thank you, Woody. No apologies, Brian.
No problem. Just a few things. On Saturday was Earth Day. It's my understanding that over 1 billion people observed that special day. And I guess maybe by accident, S5, the heating standard bill came up before the House on Thursday and Friday, and of course it passed. I did receive a lot of notes where our constituents called in and said, please do not vote for S5. There's a lot of fear out there what S5 could do, and I wasn't going to vote for it to begin with because there's too many questions related to it that are, I think, that are unanswered as of right now. But thank you for those letters and those phone calls that you sent all of us. And it wasn't just, my colleagues here, but I would imagine that throughout the state, a lot of legislators and senators received those notes and phone calls. Here, I think we listen to our constituents. I think because we're from the area, we have an idea of what things can do to either assist you in living well here, or that can hurt you. And S5, I think, does hurt our folks here, and I think ultimately will hurt our residents of Vermont. We did try in the House to bring up some amendments that might make S5 a little bit more friendlier. One of them was to put a cap on the amount of costs that it would cost individuals for their heating fuel or their transportation fuels. That was shot down. Another issue, another amendment that was raised was the ability for anyone to sue the state for the state not reaching its energy goals that have been set forward for it. Here again, that was shut down. It was not accepted. So ultimately, the bill passed out of the House something like 33, 34 to 101. It'll go to the governor's office, and I'm sure he's going to veto it. But we will not. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am, but I don't believe we have enough votes to sustain the governor's veto. So it will move on. Some other issues related to S5 I thought I would raise with you is that the Joint Fiscal Office estimates that the bill will have a $1.725 million fiscal impact on the general fund for fiscal year 2024. Out of those funds, $825,000 will go to the Public Utility Commission to pay for 3 new full-time employees, consultants, per diems for members of the 2 advisory groups, marketing and public outreach, and translation services. And here's another concern that a lot of us had, was you're putting the cart before the horse. You should have all these things planned before we ever institute this bill. The other amount of money was $900,000 for the Department of Public Service to, here again, pay for 3 new full-time employees, consultants, and funding to complete the potential study and economic modeling. The Clean Heat Standard creates heat credits. Many of those credits I don't understand, and I don't think our legislature understands how they're going to work, or even Mr. Bellavance could probably talk about the credits, but I don't even think your industry understands how that's going to eventually work. The Global Warming Solutions Act requirements would offer $6.4 billion in net benefits. This is supposedly the impact on Vermont's economy. It would offer $6.4 billion in net benefits by 2050 compared to business as usual, and there is suspected that there'll be additional costs and investments which will be required to reduce emissions as required in the Global Warming Solutions Act. And here again, if you look at the 50 states plus Puerto Rico, Vermont has the lowest emission rate in our country and in Puerto Rico. And by reducing these emissions, we pretty much have been told that it's not going to have an effect upon global warming. But that said, I think we all have a requirement to do our best, but here again, S5 is not the bill to do it with. Senator Engels talked about the appropriations, the Senate appropriations passing out the bill, the budget bill, and it'll come to House appropriations sometime next week, and we'll take a look at it. We'll see what can be done. Here again, there'll be a committee of conference between the House and the Senate and the executive portion of government that will work out that budget. What else can I tell you? You know, in many ways, we've looked towards the Senate to be the grown-ups down there and to make the changes to the House bill that we passed. And I'm hopeful that that has been done, but we'll soon find out what occurs. Are we done with me?
3 more minutes.
I was telling Wendy that we do have a bill that's coming up next week. I think it's a good bill. It's related to protecting our medical workers in the hospitals. It will allow, you know, the hospitals that are, you know, a lot of staff are being threatened out there. They're being, you know, punched, kicked, you know, spit on, which is just absolutely ridiculous. I don't know what has caused this to happen, but we have this bill, I think it's H36, it's coming before us this week, and we'll be passing it out to help protect our medical workers. Hopefully it'll do what, you know, what we're proposing in protecting those workers. So at this time, I'll cede my time to Representative Smith.
Thank you. So Representative Smith, you're next, and you got an extra like 5 minutes because they all conceded time to you.
I don't need an extra time. Thank you. Thank you. Woody, Representative Page pretty much said everything right in a nutshell, what S5 is all about. I stood up in the General Assembly last week, and I told them it was the worst piece of legislation I've seen in 7 years. No one understands it. It's 60 or 65 pages long, and there are attorneys that don't know what it's talking about. So if that tells you anything, they usually know, but just ask them. H48 came to our Environment and Energy Committee last week. Stevens came down and spoke. And I was discussing it with Amy Sheldon, and she likes the concept of it. She hasn't said what we're going to do with it yet, but just so you know, it's going to be, and our ranking member, Representative Bongartz, thought it was good to discuss, so there's going to be further discussion on looking after the lake, I hope. You know, it's kind of like cross your fingers, but we listened to a lot of testimony on S5, this Unaffordable Clean Heat Act, or whatever they want to call it. The Director of Public Service, I asked him what are the chances are with the workforce that we have. We need probably another 4,000 work people to be able to accomplish what S5 is mandating or requiring or requesting. And I asked him if it was possible to get, he said, I don't think so. I said, would you use the word impossible? And he said, absolutely impossible. So we need to hire 4,000 people that we don't have in order to get this done. And there are 20,600 mobile homes in the state of Vermont that probably are going to get nothing out of this. Heat pumps don't work. We had testimony from, well, Fred's Energy sent Dennis Percy down. Dennis was here a couple weeks ago, and he explained it to everything. But there's a big problem with that, and I can't understand why, when it left third reading in the House, it was 98 to 46, and there's 38 in our caucus. So we got a few votes, but I don't know where we're going to be able to find 5 more to sustain this. We're probably going to need more than that. But let me see, Jim Harrison is a representative from Chittenden, not Chittenden County, the little tiny town of Chittenden, had called for an amendment capping, you know, well, let me back up a little bit. Julie Moore explained, Secretary of Natural Resources, that she's anticipating 70 cents a gallon more going to be added to heating fuel. Now, I think that's probably a low number myself, but Jim Harrison suggested that we cap it at 20 cents a gallon so that we could at least go back to our constituents and feel halfway decent about not sticking it to them. And that was shot down, 101 to 43. 43 yes, 101 no on that. And I can't understand why someone can't stand up for their constituents. Maybe they're looking for a full-time job. I don't know. We'll see about that coming up. And the goals of S5 are just completely unachievable or unaccomplishable. We've been looking at Senate Bill S100. It was sent over to our Environment and Energy Committee from General Housing. And it's all about housing. There's millions and millions of dollars. I think Russell mentioned $100 million in the housing that left that committee. I don't know why Environment and Energy is working on housing. There are some zoning issues in it, and that's a 60-page bill also. And I have suggested, and I've spoken with our chair about splitting the bill. The representative of Craftsbury approached me and suggested that we do not split that bill, which leads me to believe that we probably better. So anyway, we'll see. The first part of the bill, I ran the bill by our zoning administrator in Derby, and Bob Kelly seemed to think the first part of it was good. It's not going to hurt the town too much or at all. Let me see what else. We had a trapping bill that probably isn't going to go anywhere. I listened to some folks talking about trapping. we didn't have very many people that came in to talk about trapping, just people that didn't like trapping and did most of the testimony. So S5 is what we're working on, and S100, and we'll see where that goes this coming week. But Representative Page mentioned all the things going on with S5, and Russell did, and that's the big concern right now, that Vermonters are going to get stuck terribly. And we're kind of got our hands tied behind our backs, but I got a feeling that with all the hard work that Senator Ingalls is going to be doing in the Senate, he can probably put a stop to S5. So I think you got a pretty good shot at that. So that's about all I've got. And usually the last couple of weeks when I've been getting to the Capitol, I walk up the steps Tuesday morning, the first thing I think of is, God, only 4 more days to the weekend. So thank you.
So we're now about ready to begin a question and answer session, but before we begin, I also would like to thank the members of the media that are here today, and also a reminder that our next legislative breakfast on May 15th at 7:30 here will be sponsored by the hospital, but also Bill Davies has told me that that's going to be his last legislative breakfast. Yes, so we will miss him, but I wanted you to please get the word out to other people, because we might have a little something for him, but please don't tell him, okay? He's not going to check the internet, so we don't have to worry about that. No. Okay. So now the question and answer period. Well, we've got Bernie. And state your name and your address for the camera.
Yes, I'm Bernard Peters from Irisburg, Vermont, and I've been listening to all this stuff going on. It's amazing that some people in Montpelier seem to have this ability to read the future. They already know there's going to be tax raises when we had all this money. I mean, I told Scott at one time when he talked about all this money, I said, I have...
We've modified the formats. Questions?
Okay. My question is, why are we going to raise all these taxes? Because first of all, the population of Vermont is getting smaller because all the young people are leaving. There's no jobs. There's no jobs for them at all. And there's a lot of us mature people who can't pay no more. So guess what's going to happen to us shortly? We're going to say bye-bye, and we're going to go somewhere else. There's going to be no tax base pretty soon. We don't have no jobs. We don't have very few jobs coming in. The workers are leaving, and the elderly people who've been here for generations have basically got to the point, said, to hell with it, I'm going where it's warm, and I ain't shoveling no friggin' snow.
Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Bernie. And we'll begin with Senator Russ Ingalls.
Thank you, Bernie. You're exactly right. You hit all the points. The governor had a budget out there that accomplished everything that the supermajority wanted, but it just wasn't grand enough. But it didn't raise taxes. It didn't overspend. A lot of it was voluntary. A lot of it was the people that we were trying to save really asked for, but we just had all this money, and they just thought that we had to spend it and spend some more and spend some more and spend some more. So your taxes are going up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are, and there's no need for it. But I agree. We have to. The party's over as far as spending massive amounts of money. We've spent $10 billion. That's great. It was for transformational changes. 75% of it, but we can't afford to raise taxes in this state. We just can't, and for all the reasons, Bernie, that you said. You hit it right on the head. Thank you.
Representative Smith.
I'm going to call you Bernard. I don't like the word Bernie. Real simple answer to what your question is. Get everybody in this room to call 5 people, tell them to go and vote. You got to vote. If you don't vote, don't complain. So.
Representative Page.
Well, I would say that there are some good things in this budget. We have we've made increases to rates for health care, human services providers, to include dental services, primary care, designated special service agencies, assisted care services, adult daycare, and home health services and nursing homes. That's the good thing, okay? But a lot of the other stuff that we're passing, the bottom line is it's unsustainable. And that's why we have to raise the taxes, unfortunately. There's been some discussion about the Department of Transportation raising fees. Approximately 20% of all the fees in the Department of Transportation, your car registration, your driver's license, all those fees are going up. And why? As well as other fees, it's because the budget is unsustainable as it is.
Next question. Yes.
Good morning. My name's Beth Barnes, Mayor of Newport. I hear a recurring theme here, and it actually is a great segue into my question. When I won as mayor, people even said it was by a landslide. I had to giggle at that because less than 600 people out of a population of 4,440 people came out to vote. My question to the people who said, I would have voted for you, but I don't vote, was, well, why don't you vote? The resounding answer was, I don't want to be called for jury duty. So could any of the legislators give me an answer that I can give to these people who say they are not voting because they don't want to be called to do their civic duty? Thank you.
Senator Ingalls.
So that's the first one I've heard. I've heard a lot of other reasons. The polling stations aren't open long enough, or my vote doesn't matter, or and a lot of other stuff. At the end of the day, the people who don't want to vote, you know, they can make whatever excuses that they want, but they really just need to be quiet about their opinions on stuff. If they, you know, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you don't like what's going on, you have the ability to change it. And there's a lot of people throughout the world. I guess my answer to your question, Beth, would be this. There's a lot of people, the majority of the people across the world don't have a chance to vote. They don't. They just don't have a chance to vote. And if that's what the society that you want to live in, then that's a society that you're in. A lot of excuses to why they don't vote, but I haven't ever heard a good one. That's the first time I've heard that one, but I'm not saying it's a good one. But if you want to impact change, you've got to go and let your voice be heard, and you got to vote. Thank you.
Representative Smith.
I think, Beth, that people that go to motor vehicles, get driver's licenses and register their vehicles, I think, and I'm going to find out, I'll find out tomorrow if I'm lucky. That's where jury duty names are drawn from, is a list from motor vehicles. But I'm not positive. I don't think it's a checklist or the voter checklist, so I'll find out and you'll know about it before the end of the week. You bet.
Representative Page.
When I run, and I generally stand outside of the municipal building on voting day, and I look at the people that are coming in. They're predominantly older Newporters for my district. I don't see a lot of younger folks there. And as a military retiree, if you don't want to vote, I would say I would defend your right not to vote, although I do believe that it's your civic duty to vote and to try to make a difference in our country. As Senator Engels said, all you have to do is travel overseas. Go to Russia, go to some of these other countries, and you see how important it is to have a good, strong democracy and the ability to vote. So I guess that's the only thing I can tell you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, question right here.
Hi, I'm Mary Hauser from Newark. My question is regarding S5 again. It looks like the governor is going to veto S5, but where are we going from there? I know it goes to a vote for to see if the veto will be sustained, but does it go to the Senate first, the House? As residents, what is our best course of action? Because apparently this is a very unpopular bill. Do you appreciate phone calls to the Sergeant at Arms? Emails, is that better? Or should we just show up at the State House with the sign, no S5? People seem to have forgotten that we have the right to assemble in this country. So what is the best? What do you appreciate more? What do you think is the most effective to knock this out? Phone calls, emails, show up at a rally on the State House lawn. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Senator Ingalls.
Thank you, Mary. All of the above. All of the above. Every bit of it. So to answer your question, what happens is the governor's going to veto it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We have one vote away in the Senate from holding that veto if when the governor vetoes it. And there is probably 3 senators who are on the fence about it. I'd be happy to supply those names to you if you'd like. But all the above, I mean, just to hear from you in any way, shape, or form that you can, and just don't stop. You guys have done a good job with that. But what happens with S5? Here's what's supposed to happen with S5. It's supposed to, if it passes, if it stays and it passes, here's what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to come back in January of 2025 as a brand new bill that's supposed to go to the committees of jurisdiction. It's supposed to go to the House. It's supposed to go to the Senate with all the committees that can touch it. And then it's supposed to come up for a vote in those committees. Then it's supposed to come up for a vote again in the House and in the Senate. And then the governor's supposed to be able to have a say on what goes on with that. So this battle isn't over, even if it does pass. But there's some language in there that says that none of that needs to happen if they don't want it to happen. So the pressure needs to stay on. You know, we're still fighting, we're still swinging, and I apologize to everybody. I apologize to everybody for spending so much time on this. I really do. But you just can't imagine the magnitude of what this is going to do for rural Vermont. 80% of our population is paycheck to paycheck. The governor, one of his lines that he had that struck me the most was it doesn't take very long to go from the blue tarp roofs to prosperity in this state. And it's just so true. There's just in the kingdom. It's every district has people who are just trying a way of how they can make it. And I have one formula that I use, and I apologize for being a little long-winded on this, I really do. But I have one formula that I use every time a bill comes up, and it's this. And I apologize for the way that it is, and I've said it here before, but I just can't get it out of my head. A bill comes up, and all I can think of is a single mom with 3 kids who is doing everything that she can do to provide for her and for her family and to make life better. And I look at that bill and I'll say, is this going to make her life better? Is it going to keep it the same, or is it going to make it worse? And that's how I vote. That's how I vote. People in this state deserve to get up every day, not with drudgery, but with optimism, and to go and say, you know, I'm going to have a good day today, and things are going to be great today. And I'm just going to go there. I'm going to knock it out of the park. I'm going to see my family at the end of the day. We're going to have a good time, and we're going to have plenty of food, and we're going to make sure that the cable bill comes in, it's paid. We're going to be sure that we can keep fuel in our tank. And this bill is disruptive to our way of life. That it keeps me awake at night. It really, really does. It just bothers me to this point for no good. 640,000 people cannot change the climate in the world. Vermont, if we were to enact every bit of what's been proposed, every bit of it to what's been proposed, a half a day in China eats up our whole year. So it's just, yes, I believe that we should do our part to leave this world in a better place than the way that we found it. And we do in this state. We already do that. We spend over $400 million a year in climate initiatives to make sure that we keep this state green. This is just something, this bill is harmful to all of us, no matter where we are in life, but it just pounds and keeps people pushed down to levels that it just does. It just makes life a lot harder. So that's why we spend so much time on it. Thank you.
Representative Smith.
In answer to your question, do all three. And it would be great to see 5,000 people standing on the lawn down there. And if somebody could get it organized to do it, it would be hard. It's a hard thing to do, but letters to the House, the Sergeant at Arms, senators, legislators, don't stop and just keep telling more and more and more people. It's easy site to find on the internet, so that's my answer to that, and hopefully people will smarten up.
Representative Page.
I would agree with everyone that has spoken, but I would direct my letters and my phone calls to the House Speaker, as well as to the Senate Pro Tem, and take a look at who voted in favor of this bill. I would not recommend sending the letters to your Northeast Kingdom legislators, because you already know how we feel about it. Every one of us has voted against this bill, except for one individual, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Next question. There we go. Thank you.
My name is Effie Brown. I'm a Derby resident. I don't vote Democrat or Republican. I vote for the best candidate, and I'm really pleased that you all are here. My question is, there seems to be some misinformation that's floating around about our lake and the landfill that towers over it. My question is, where is the misinformation coming from? I had a senator get in my face at the last meeting and tell me 99% of what I am saying and Dump is saying is not true. So I was accused of being a liar. It's the integrity of the group Dump that I stand here. I have a few pages here of data. It comes right from News VT, and if you'd like to look at it, you're welcome. A well-informed person is probably better to speak on who's telling the truth. Thank you.
Senator Ingalls.
Actually, that was me. And it was me. And we don't have a problem with your mission, but we do expect you to tell the truth. That's what we expect. And we've met with Casella, we've met with the state, we've met with everybody. This landfill is not leaking. But what you don't tell, there is stuff up there that is leaking. There's stuff from 100 years of that being used as a landfill, of harmful stuff that's there, and it's leaking. And one of the things that I was very disappointed with your group is that you folks put some actions on there to keep the landfill from actually cleaning up PCBs that are leaking, not from their site, but leaking from the other site that they're not even responsible for. And you created a situation where what you claim to be protective of actually has done damage. And that is PCBs leaking from the old landfill that this company has no business, no fault, nothing to do with, but yet they're there on our behalf and they're cleaning it up, which is very, very, very thankful. It's okay to be an advocate. It really is okay to be an advocate. And we respect that, and we want you to be an advocate. But there's a story about the little boy who cried wolf, over and over and over and over again. And if you're gonna tell the story, you gotta tell the story. And it needs to be accurate. And I spent a lot of time chasing down a lot of what you folks are talking about, only to find out that there are mistruths. And it isn't true of what you say about a lot of the stuff that you're saying about. It's not to say that I don't want you to be advocates for us, because we do. But if you want me to be involved, as you've asked me to do, all of you, several different times, when I chase something down, only to find out what you told me isn't true, then I get a little bit upset about that. So keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate it. But also recognize that the people that doing this, landfills are dirty. They're just, but it's a fact of life. We have one. We have one in our community. And I think that this Casella, I'm not an advocate for them, not at all. I want to make sure that they're doing a good job. I want to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. But they're a heck of a lot better than the people that were there before. And they are cleaning up problems that they didn't create and they didn't cause. But yet they're making sure that they're making sure that them harmful chemicals aren't going into this lake. And that's my part of it. It really, really is. And so if you want me to be an advocate for you, bring good information to me. Don't bring the half-truth. Bring the information to me that's accurate, and I'll do that. And I've seen that. I've seen the reports. I've been to A&R. I've talked to Julie Moore. I actually had a meeting with Casella. I asked them point blank, is this landfill leaking? Is this landfill leaking? Is the landfill leaking? And the answer is no, it is not. And the pipe that you guys referenced, oh, it's leaking. It's not a pipe that comes from their landfill. It's a pipe to make sure that other waters around there does not infiltrate the landfill, or that they can monitor it. Well, no, I've been there. I've talked to A&R. I've talked to Julie Moore. I talked to them, and I've talked to them. And the information that you provide me isn't the information that the professionals have done. And I don't want to turn this into I just don't want to turn it into whatever it is. But you've said some things. I just want to respond. Thank you.
Before I call the next representative, will members of the audience please refrain from interacting with the representatives? Let them speak, and then you will be allowed to ask a question after. Thank you. Representative Smith. I have nothing to add to that. Thank you. Representative Page.
I will just say that your legislators have tried to do their best in keeping the lake clean. We submitted, I'm sorry. Your legislators from this area have tried to do their best in trying to keep and make sure that Memphremagog is clean. We submitted a bill H345 naming Lake Memphremagog a lake in crisis so that we could get more monies to help the lake. We also submitted H48, which was to increase the revenues for Vermont that Vermont receives for the disposal of solid and hazardous waste materials from outside the Northeast Kingdom to the Coventry landfill. The increases in those charges from outside the Northeast Kingdom would be used by the state to try to locate and set up an additional landfill either within or outside of Vermont. And we put a timeline on that for 2 years. That's why Ms. Stevens went down and spoke before Representative Smith's committee on that bill. We'll see where some of these things go, but I mean, we are trying to help our lake and to do something about our landfill. No, I have a constituent that looks out onto the landfill. And what distresses me the most about it is that, this person says, I used to look out my kitchen window and I would see the Willoughby Gap. What does that person see now? She doesn't even see the Willoughby Gap. She sees Mount Casella. And that's a sad state of affairs. Go up through Pleasant Street, look over at the cemetery, and in the distance you see the landfill. It's kind of a sad view, considering we're supposed to be green here in Vermont and environmentally friendly. So I'm not going to address some of the other comments, but we are trying to do our best.
Thank you. Yes, we have.
I know that Ed Barber, Newport Daily Express. I know we're featuring one senator and two representatives today, but we have two senators and three representatives who had showed up. My question to them, to all of them, is: will you work with Casella to support a move to have the Agency of Natural Resources make an agreement they will not take our pretreated effluent and put it into the Lake Memphremagog watershed? Simple question. We don't have a choice. It's here. Do we have to put it into our watershed? Yes or no? Should go somewhere else? It's my question to the senators and representatives that are here. Will you support that move?
Senator Ingalls.
I have said to A&R, Julie Moore, who I'm in communication with now, and I'll be with later. I have said to the landfill, I've said to anybody that wants, I've said to the governor, I've said to everybody, that anything that is treated out of that landfill will not come into this lake. It will not like what it has before. Right now, it's going to Plattsburgh, and it's going to Montpelier. And the reason why they want to build a facility up there to pre-treat these chemicals, this effluent that's coming out of the landfill, is that these places that are taking this are asking for that. They said, if you still want to take our stuff, we want it treated. We want it treated more. We want it more. Actually want it treated before. We want the PCBs out of there. We want these things out of there. So as long as I'm living or breathing and doing anything, I will make sure that anything that comes out of there in a liquid form does not get dumped into this lake. And that's just the way it is. And that's what I've done, and that's what I'll do. Thank you.
I'll finish with the scheduled reps and then give the other attendees opportunities to speak if they choose. Representative Smith?
Apparently, there's $1 million that's going to be spent preparing this treatment plant here in Newport, or in Coventry. And getting the treatment is good, but I don't want to see this coming back into the lake. I don't care if it's coming out pure water. I don't want it back in the lake. I've said from the get-go that I think Casella is probably the most scrutinized, most inspected, well taken care of landfill probably on this side of the Mississippi River. But that doesn't justify the fact that it's on the river, that it's built on a river. That's my big concern, and I would much rather see this plant being built in Montpelier or in Plattsburgh somewhere other than here, but it's going to get built here, and I think we have to live with it, just as long as it goes back into a truck and goes somewhere else. So that's about all I can add to that, and we're not going to stop it from being built. We can't. I wish we could, but we can't.
Representative Page?
Here again, I do not want to see the leachate processing plant built here at Coventry. Again, I'm afraid it's going to be, and I am not in favor of any treated leachate being processed in our waste plant here and being put into Lake Memphremagog.
Senator Starr, would you like to respond?
Well, I can. I wasn't planning on talking. You know, you
We have
learn.
plenty of time to fill, so you're good.
Well, a wise person once told me that we have 2 ears and 1 tongue because you learn twice as much by listening than you can by talking. But the dump is a serious issue. And, you know, I really don't know if you're better off treating it here or in Montpelier or in Plattsburgh. If you've got it at a central location, which the dump is because that's where the problem is, then the vehicles traveling can go in either direction to where they need to go. As far as, you know, I feel that Casella does as good a job managing the facility as any landfill caretaker could be. But the dump in general should have never have been there. And when that was started, it wasn't 100 years ago. I believe Charlie so-and-so started that, you know, maybe 50 years ago. And it should never have been allowed with the river right nearby in the South Bay, and the landfill should have been sited someplace centrally in Vermont. You hear about green, we got to be green, and here the state is running trucks, and I'm a former truck owner and know a little bit about running trucks. You're running them the whole length of the state to get to Coventry, and then they're going back empty. And, you know, they're putting out exhausts and everything else, even though these new trucks run as this microphone stand. It just doesn't make sense to run vehicles the whole length of Vermont to bring trash here. It should be centrally located. As far as, you know, trucking that stuff to Plattsburgh or to Montpelier, you know, it's at least a 2-hour drive to Plattsburgh. So I think it will be built here, not from any support of us that are here, but this lake out here, you know, that's our lifeblood for this area in the summer. Jay Peak will provide us jobs and things in the winter, but it's very important to keep our waters clean and safe, and our friends and neighbors north of us get their drinking water out of there. So that's very important as well, to let clean water flow to them. So, you know, I think we've got another 20 years, but we should be planning someplace in the central part of the state, you know, where this would work well. You know, you think of easy places to get to in the middle. I think White River is it's a little bit south, but not that much. But you've got 89 that goes there. You've got 91 that goes there. So in that general area, you know, you could be centrally located. So, but we better get ready to put up with that for 20 years. But in the meantime, we should be developing a new spot.
Representative Labor, would you like to answer his question? It's optional. 'Cause okay. Thank you.
I didn't ask I will get you. I suspect folks are going to get sick and tired of hearing me this third time in a row. I'd like to change the subject just a little. Since we can't change what Casella is doing or what A&R is doing, that ship has already left the port. Can we change the future? Yes. And that's what we should try to do. Just remember, November 24. Now that that is said, let me describe some of the things that are happening that come into your, probably not your emails, but they're public knowledge. Farmington, Maine, for instance. I got an email yesterday from a television station in Maine about an individual who works for a company, and he's all into it. He's going green. He's going to get some mini split cold climate heat pumps for his house, which is only 1,400 square feet. That's not a big place. Then the wrinkle came. He has an oil burner. I'll just whip that tank right out of there. And I'll put in a pellet burner as a backup. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Same chimney, modern technology. But then he went to get his house insured because of change of systems. There's no allowance in the insurance industry for that to be primary heat. They will not insure him. That's a new wrinkle, isn't it? So before you take a dive into the cold climate heat pumps, check your insurance carrier. Because if you plan on making it primary, you may have a problem. You may have a problem with your wallet when you get your electrical bill. But that's neither here nor there. You want to know why the DMV is raising their rates? Well, let's tell the truth here. 8,800 EVs are in the state not paying any road tax. Fancy that. When they get to 15,000, they're thinking about introducing a bill to raise it based on mileage. Well, it's a pretty easy thing to do. Every year you get your vehicle inspected. There's a little computer. It has your odometer on it. Next year you go in, the odometer reading is taken. Take one, subtract it from the other, you know the number of miles times 1.2 cents per mile. There's your road tax. Have a good day. Put it on your Vermont state tax form. I don't care how they collect it. No new bureaucracy is needed. It's already there. You know how far that bill went? Yeah, so it's pinned up on the wall. We have all these closed welcome centers. Now they have water, they have electricity, they have septic, but they have no building. Well, how's a tourist from away, I don't care which state, going to traverse Vermont, maybe stay here for a week or so, looking at our beautiful lakes and mountains? What are they going to charge? How many charging stations do we have that are easily accessible near an interstate? Not very many. So I got a bill sitting out there to introduce the third tier charging stations, the quick ones, so they can generate the revenue, so that they, if they just use a little imagination, if you get somebody like mom and pop, Maple Fields, I don't care who, to put a little kiosk there with tourist info in it and 2 restrooms, camera manned, not the inside of the restroom, but camera manned the place for the pumps, for the charging stations, and have a charge card on it. When you say, well, those are $65,000 units. Yes, they are. Why should Vermont pay for it? Let Velco, let GMP install them. You got the credit card reader, let them get 75% of the revenue, 25% come to the state, And now you've encouraged tourism. They may stay and stop longer. They know they can get home. They know they can get to the Maritimes or northern Maine. They don't find a charging station up there, not my problem. That's some of the stuff that's going on down there. Somebody asked me, what was the best part of my week? And I said, getting up Tuesday morning, riding down with two of my colleagues to try to change the world for a better place, meaning Vermont. Well, that's true until you get to Friday and you say, God, I can't wait to get the hell out of this zoo. Have a great day.
Thank you. We do have time for one more brief question. Can I ask a second question? Briefly? Thank you.
Mary Hauser from Newark. My question is on ranked choice voting. Please tell me what your thoughts are on ranked choice voting. I'm so sorry, I forgot the number of the bill. Do you think that folks would be encouraged to come out and vote, or do you think they would be too confused over too many choices? Or do you think it would encourage people to come out and vote because they'd have a selection and maybe feel that they have more of a choice, that their candidate would have a chance to be voted in? And which way do you lean? Thank you.
Senator Ingalls.
I didn't support ranked choice voting. I think we have a hard enough problem right now just getting people just to go vote like we vote in the world. From what I understand, ranked choice voting was brought forward because the Democrats are a little concerned about the rate of what the progressives are coming into their rank and file, and so they saw this as a way to slow it down for whatever reason. We had the bill that was brought to the Senate floor, and the people that brought the bill forward couldn't even explain how it worked. I can't imagine how these town clerks who just do their best to just to keep chaos from happening when folks are coming to vote, how they're going to sit there and try to explain on how this works. I think it's actually, of all things, I think we'll get less people to vote with ranked choice voting. At least in our district, I'm not in favor of it.
Representative Smith.
I don't like ranked choice voting. You go and vote for the candidate that you support. If Burlington, Vermont, and their progressive city council believes that ranked choice voting is the way to go, pretty obvious what I think. So, that being said.
Representative Page.
I'm not for ranked choice voting. Maine actually has that now. And if you remember a few years ago, the city of Burlington also had it. They were not pleased with the candidate that actually won the mayorship, and eventually they did change it. Now they want to go back. Doesn't make sense to me. So again, I'm not for it.
That actually went quicker than I expected, so we do have time for another brief question if anyone. Here you go, Beth. Yes, it has to be a question. Any other questions? Well, if not, our next legislative breakfast is going to be May 15th. It will be all the legislators. It will be sponsored by North Country Hospital. And I'd like to thank again the Eastside for the great breakfast, the members of the media, NEK-TV, and of course, as always, all the legislators who are here and spoke. We thank you very much, and everyone who asked a question and everyone for attending. So thank you all. Have a great day.